So today I'm refuting Samantha Villagrán on the claim that the death penalty is not an effective form of punishment. And in order to do that, I'll have to refute the secondary claims supporting it. The first one is that the death penalty wastes time and money. Second, that innocent people are killed because of the death penalty, and that it kills people unjustifiably. And last, I will refute the secondary claim that the death penalty does not deter crime. Before I refute each specific secondary claim, I want to question the source used for the evidence to back all the claims up. Each piece of evidence used to further the claim that the death penalty is not an effective form of punishment, they're actually all from the same exact source, the Death Penalty Information Center. And it is a pretty informative site, but it has been criticized in the past for being biased towards an anti-death penalty viewpoint. So that kind of weakens a conviction trying to be proven. More evidence would have, more varied evidence would have helped the claim. So now I'm going to diminish the claim that the death penalty wastes time and money. The evidence used to support this claim states that that California has spent $4 billion in the 37 years that the death penalty has been used. However, California does have the largest population out of any state. Furthermore, according to a study published in 2014, the United States government as a whole has spent a total of $80 billion on the prison system in just 1 year, or nearly $3 trillion if we extrapolate that a little bit for the next 37 years, but that's without factoring in any sort of inflation. So using the possibly faulty warrant reasoning used for the original claim, plugging in our new numbers, we could say that the whole prison system across the country is wasting money, because we don't really know what constitutes wasting money. Next, I'm going to refute the claim that innocent people are killed because of the death penalty and that it kills people unjustifiably. First, I'd like to say that unjustifiably invokes value, and that particular value in question here is definitely in the eye of the beholder. Someone whose loved ones have been murdered by somebody who's on death row currently is definitely going to have a different value in that case. Going off of that, I'd like to introduce a counterpoint that innocent people could have been saved if the death penalty was used. For example, according to a biography on the serial killer Arthur Shawcross, Shawcross raped and murdered 2 children in 1972. He was only sentenced to 25 years in prison, but was released on parole in 1987. He began murdering again, in fact, taking 12 innocent lives before being arrested in 1990. If he had been put to death originally and not spared, 12 lives at the very least could have been saved. And continuing to refute the claim that innocent people are killed because of the death penalty, a Senate report published in 2002 states that the evidence which was used to advance that claim, a list of innocents freed from death row, has been exaggerated and jumps to conclusions, misstating what has happened in various cases. Finally, I'm going to refute the claim that the death penalty does not deter crime. The only statistical evidence used to back this claim up is an example of the cum hoc ergo propter hoc fallacy. That is, the fallacy committed when one jumps to a conclusion about statistical evidence based on jumps to a conclusion about causation based on correlation between 2 events which occur at the same time. The evidence used states that a study shows in states where the death penalty is legal, there is consistently higher murder rates. But there's a million other factors that might contribute to higher murder rates, and no inference or warrant is given for us to believe that the higher murder rates correlate with the death penalty in any way. For example, maybe the states originally decided to start using the death penalty because they have just historically had higher murder rates. So in conclusion, due to the questionable evidence used in counterclaims I made previously, I believe that I have successfully refuted the claim that the death penalty is not an effective form of punishment.
All right. You need one of those that goes with this.
Oh, okay.
You put your name on it, and
Yeah.
then you can hand it back to me.
Absolutely. Ooh, sorry.
That's okay, don't worry about it. All right, Trenton, everything's well organized. You lay out at the beginning what the advocate's argument was. The general criticism of the Death Penalty Information Center is fine as long as you provide some basis for that. You just basically say they've been criticized for bias. Well, who's done this criticism? What suggestions have those critics made? What kinds of bias have they talked about? This is kind of passing on a secondary challenge, and I think there might be legitimate reasons why they are biased. They do seem to be the mouthpiece for people who are opposed to the death penalty, so they probably gather information and cite that information more. If somebody has arrived at that conclusion and there's somebody who's authoritative, it would be good for you to cite them. I think that would give you a stronger general argument on those points. On the time and money thing, I think you do a good job kind of explaining, look, we're talking about a portion of the total budget of the judicial system, and it's relatively small in comparison to what we are spending. I think it puts it into reasonable perspective there. I think at the end you get to the question of whether or not the money is wasted, and I think you do kind of make the challenge that says they don't really explain what they mean by wasted. I think you need to maybe make an argument that talks about what the utility of doing that is, and you do make that argument on the second point where you're saying, look, if we were carrying out these executions, there would be a utility of this. We would be saving lives. On the argument about innocent people being executed, I thought that you did a good job talking about the value issue and pointing out that that's a matter of perspective. And then you've made the argument that we were talking about before. I think there's probably a deterrence argument to be made here also, and I think you could do that down on the third point. I thought that the general criticism of the way the information has been used from the 2002 citation that you had was a good piece of information. I want to make sure that it applies to the claim that the advocate was using. Was it the same evidence that they were using? Because if it is, then I think that that's a really effective challenge on that particular point. On the issue of deterrence, I thought you explained well the problem with the reasoning with the state-by-state comparison. You gave a hypothetical. That's always one of those arguments. Maybe states with higher death penalties have it because they have higher murder rates. That's the simple way that you would summarize that argument that you're making. And then I think you could be a little bit stronger in that argument by showing that there's other statistical relationships that show, that account for some of the variables that you say weren't accounted for in this comparison, which would show that it does have an impact. And there are a lot of studies that make inferences about what the number of deaths are that are prevented by execution and that sort of thing. And a couple of those at least kind of put a little bit more extra powder in the bullet, so it hits a little bit harder. All right, thank you.